Welcome back to the latest episode of TT Plays. My name's Sung Soo, and today we're going to talk about what wind deck I should take to Ascent Houston. So Ascent Houston is like literally a week away, and none of my locals that are going have picked the deck yet. It was kind of last minute that we were able to go, and I'm excited about going. I don't have a ton of expectations, which makes it even better. Like if I was going to a big Flesh and Blood event, I would be like, I have to make day two. For the Grand Archive event, I'm like, maybe I'll shoot some content when I'm there, buy some playmats. It would be really nice to meet some people that I've only kind of talked with or interacted with online. So obviously there's three main elements we can pick from here. Water, I enjoy playing, but I'm really concerned with my ability to get 3 games in an hour over the course of a large event with water decks. So I'm not really considering water decks. I do really like water Merlin, but again, not really considering that deck. I really like Fire Xander. It's very efficient. I don't know how much fun it is to play. I compared it to Red Deck Wins. I have a deck tech video on it. I think it's a very good deck. There's some really cool lines. So maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do Fire Merlin. But the element I've enjoyed playing the most in the Fractured Crown meta is actually Wind. I think it has a ton of really live and viable and deep interactions. And that's what I love about Grand Archive is those places where there's not like a clear best decision and you can kind of, for lack of a better term, there's a lot of self-expression there. So I really like Wind. I've narrowed it down to 4 decks. The first 2 decks we're going to cover, I've actually done deck techs on. This is my Shout at Your Decks Windy Boy Rye deck that I still probably don't think is good enough, but it has one of my favorite cards in the game in it, and that's Zephyr Assistant. When it comes into play, I get an enlightener counter. When it leaves play, I get an enlightening counter. We're going to combine that with the Ascent, obviously, which is just amazing. It bounces it. It's a 3/4. It also has Intercept to protect us. And then we have all the normal ways to displace the Invoker in the list as well, right? We actually have the card Displace, which is great. We get 3 enlightened counters out of that, 4 if we have the Ventus out there, 5 if we're level 2 Rye. We have the Zephyr here. So I really like this deck. I think this deck is definitely a tier under the quote-unquote top decks. And am I okay with that? Maybe. I'm going to test this deck some more this weekend. And if I have enough fun with it, I'm certainly willing to try to go 3-3 with it and just have a good time. So I'm considering Wind Rye here. The next deck up is a Aggro Win Tristan, and this was inspired a lot by, nope, that's not the good way to look at it, by the True Champion Gaming video. My original Tristan video I posted was kind of more of a mid-range Windwalker Boots build that was leveraging Cunning Broker to draw more cards. This is kind of a pretend aggro build. I'm running the 2 main baubles here to give me the additional card draw because, again, we're an aggro deck. We're trying to get low. We're trying to go fast. Most of the games I'm winning, I'm only going to Xander. I'm not going all the way up. A lot of times my second materialize is actually the Poison Dagger to apply pressure instead of immediately going to Dagger. So I'll normally go Poison Dagger turn 2, Xander turn 3, try to win it on 3 or 4. It's got some interesting tech in it though. Obviously everyone likes smoke bombs. The fact that it doesn't require class is obnoxious, but giving an enemy stealth so you can get by their taunt can be really big. Giving yourselves taunt so that they can cancel an attack is also pretty big. So I do like the smoke bombs in there as well. We have Nullifying Lantern, of course, just to prevent like unfair fire decks. Poison Dagger we've talked about. And Assassin Ripper is really, really cool in the Wind deck. Very importantly, it's got that 2 durability. We can remove a counter so this attacks for 3. And then probably the best Wind Assassin card is going to be Poise Strike. So if we use that counter off the Ripper and we use Poise Strike, we can attack with the Poise Strike Ripper for 6. On hit, we ready the champion and we can swing again using that Ripper the second time for 3. That's 9 damage off a Materialize plus a Poise Strike. That's really, really good. That's, again, very solid. We're running the Coup de Grace because theoretically we can get enough prep counters to actually turn this thing on. If it does, that's great. Again, we can do this with the Dagger to present 7, possibly 14. And then we're just running like some traditional Wind things, right? Dream Fairies are just a really good card. Extortion Scheme with the Suppress plus a prep counter. Again, just a really good card. Swift Recruit, kind of a staple of Wind, that Intercept and Floating Memory. Reclaim to kind of protect my own stuff, bounce it around a little bit. I'm running the 3 Assassin allies that I really like. Bushwhack Bandit coming in for that 2, possibly 4 with that critical 1. If by some miracle they stay on the board for more than 1 turn, they're just playing in the Sprinkler. We have the Broker, which can grant themselves stealth, 2/3, kind of that fat butt we really appreciate there. Karazi Outlook with that 1/3, the ability to stop shenanigans in our turns. We can kind of plan out our turn really well. Like if you're worried about doing like a last resort or something like that, or a veiled breeze, especially before we use that poison dagger, it's great just to activate the Karazi Outlook at the start of the turn. Before they have the opportunity to do anything else, they kind of have to tip their hand. If they need to run out the last resort, then great. I'm not going to use the dagger. I can just work on clearing the board. If they don't, cool, right? We can send the dagger face, pick up that additional damage, and hopefully get the win there. So I really like the Outlook as a tech piece there. And those are kind of like the core wind pieces we have there. Oh, an Arrow Trap, one of the best pieces of removal. I'm currently at 4. You could talk me into going fewer there. Then we just have like generic cards that are really good, like Thieving Cut. On hit draw, if I use a prep counter, great. We've got a bunch of ways to get prep counters. Kingdom Informant has that floating memory stealth, that 1/2 butt, kind of gives us that safe turn 0 play. Lurking Assailant with stealth, that 2/3 as well, gives us that safe turn 0 play. Gawain, I've really liked. We almost never turn this True Sight on, but that on hit champion, look at their memory and discard a card from it. It can just be a lot of value in the mid to late games. If things start getting grindy, we can kind of trade Gawain out there. So currently on 2 Gawains there. So I've really enjoyed this deck. I still think this deck is a cut under. There's the sideboard right there, and all the things will be in the deck notes. I worry that the deck's just not quite good enough. I am just running the 2 main baubles I'm worried about main deck. Obviously, sideboard 1 or possibly 2 of them will come out. If 2 of them come out, it's pretty straightforward. I bring in the water bauble and then probably the life essence. If just one of them comes out, I normally bring in the corresponding trinket I'm worried about. We have the Zephyrs and the life essence for like particular matchups. But basically, I just want to draw as many cards as possible. I'm an aggro deck. I want to stay low to the ground. I want to keep applying pressure. So I do really like Win Tristan. This is the way I'm leaning right now. But again, we're talking about it. It helps me to kind of vocalize these things and run through them. And I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone says in the comments. All right. Next up, this is Cabin's list. I just stole it from True Champions Gaming. I don't think he'll take offense to this. It's a pretty standard Wind Lorraine list. And it's just really good. Like Wind Lorraine is basically just running Tribal Human. And it's just really good, right? Gildeas is just a beating. When you swing in for 4 and then you play things behind it, it's just so good. We have all sorts of defensive tech to protect our board, right? We have favorable wins, Innervate Agility, Reclaim, Veiled, all sorts of nice, solid defensive tech. Displace. Dream Fairy, which is just a menace. It's great against the Majestic Spirit, really good into a lot of decks. They just can't deal with that stealth. That 2 butt is really live. A lot of people end up pulling out the Sword of Seeking. But getting that additional attack means I'm using an attack card and a counter on that to attack my Dream Fairy, and I'm usually okay with that. Windrider Vanguard, just an incredibly efficient card. That 2/3 with Vigor, so the Retaliate's always up, just a great card. Ace and Protector, don't really need to say more about that. That 3/4. I do think it's worth noting that on enter, while often is a benefit to the person playing it, you as the defender can do some interesting things there. Like if all they have is the Ace and Protector and you can flicker it, it would have to return itself to hand. So keep that in mind too. There's a lot of like ways to play around that. The Phalanx Captain, really solid. Again, we're just going with a thick, wide backside team here that can take a lot of damage. Just resilient. We're going to control the board. We're going to grind things down. Deflecting Edge for 3 is a ton of value. Woodland Squirrels go great with the Protector, right? We play the Squirrel, attack for 1, play the Protector, attack for 3, bounce the Squirrel, replay the Squirrel, attack for another 1. Right? That's just a really clean combo there. The Squirrel also allows you to balance Gildas out a lot easier. Sometimes it's nice to have that 0-drop play to kind of make your hand and memory kind of balance there. So again, Wind Lorraine, I don't think there's anything revolutionary in here, right? They obviously picked up Ventus with this set. I just think this is a really, really good deck. Now, do I want to play it? I don't know. I don't personally enjoy the deck as much as Tristan does. But it is just a very good, high quality deck. And it's definitely on my short list here. The last deck I want to talk about is another one I stole from Cayman here. And I kept hoping he'd do a deck tech on it, but they haven't yet. I'm sure he will coming up. You can check them out at True Champion Gaming. I have absolutely loved playing this deck. It's Merlin, which as you all know is my favorite hero. It obviously goes into Big Merlin, which is obviously phenomenal. It does do Rye for the level 1, which is interesting for a few reasons. A, we get 2 Enlightened counters, so Ventus can start working earlier. The other thing is we don't get the free Sword of Seeking, so our Spirit Blade Ascensions take a little bit longer to turn on, but that's okay, generally speaking, right? We've got Windrider Invoker, which is just an absolute beating. Comes in, 2 enlightened counters, gets a draw, so you're more efficient than just pulling 3 enlightened counters, and it gives itself +3. That 4/2 is just really nice, really aggressive, and then 2 butt there to help protect itself. Zephyr Assistant, we already talked about, one of my favorite cards in Wind. We're running the Ascent Protector. Bouncing either one of those cards works wonderfully, right? We talked about the displace with those, just a whole lot of value there. We still have the Dream Fairy in the deck, right? Some spicy Ravaging Tempest here. I've actually gone up to 2 of these when I've been playing it. I really like this. I think it's a phenomenal card. The level efficiency means Merlin can play it for free often late game. It can just be an absolute house. And if your opponent is playing Tithe Protection down against you, in order to mitigate the shenanigans you can do with like Merlin plus Prismatic, or excuse me, Merlin plus Sword, you can a lot of times bottleneck them on the Tempest where they don't even get their full card draw. So pretty cool there. Only 2 Incarnate Masteries. I upped this to 3 in my list, but again, I think 2 is perfectly fine. I cut down the Raccoons, so I took 2 Raccoons out to increase Majesty by 1 and Tempest by 1. Cruxite's just a really good card. Ascension's just a really good card. I don't need to talk about it, but just so people understand, if you're new to the game, as an additional cost, return a Sword Regalia you own to the material deck. So I'm normally going to return the Sword of Seeking or the Drawn Blade. I'm then normally going to get the Sword of Avarice to either draw 2 cards or the Prismatic Edge, where Wind makes them banish a card from their memory. And if they show a fire, I hit them with a Lightning Bolt. And if they show a water, I get to draw a card. Now, one of the important things to remember with Sword of Ascension is that cost happens before the resolution of the card. So if I already have a Prismatic or a Sword of Avarice out, I can return that card to the material deck and then go ahead and grab it again when the spell resolves. So if all I have out is the Sword of Avarice, and I use Spirit Blade Ascension, I can put the Sword of Avarice away for the cost, and then I can grab it when the Ascension resolves. So just obviously a lot of value there. This deck has been phenomenal, and I was really impressed that he thought of it. It's basically all the cool things I like out of Wind Rye, but we shoved it into a Merlin package instead, and Merlin is just solid. We have the wonderful Majestic Spirit as an end game. We can also just beat people down with our creatures, control the board, Ghost of Pendragon again, return something to the material deck, draw 2 cards. Just really good. It's also just a 2 for a 3/4 if we just want to run the Crux out because it's a May there. So just, again, high value cards. I have loved playing this deck. Loved it to death. Blanche in the sideboard has been shockingly good. It's probably the only deck. I would have never thought to do it. Again, I just stole his list and it's been great. So I really like this deck list. I hope he puts out a full deck list at True Champion Gaming. If he does, I'll link it below. But those are the 4 decks I'm considering. And again, just to run them through, we have Wind Merlin, we have Wind Lorraine, we have Wind Tristan Aggro, and then of course we have Windy Boy Rye. I think Rye probably doesn't make the cut. So I think we're really down to 3 lists here. I don't think I really enjoy playing Lorraine. So I'm going to pretend Lorraine doesn't exist. And I think then I have to decide, like, do I want to play Wind Merlin? Do I like this deck more than Fire Merlin? I think I do. Fire Merlin definitely has more like upside, more just like, I'm going to blow you out with a Rhapsody for 9, which turns on Majestic Spirit for free, which is just utterly insane. Like, you can do some really nasty, aggressive things with Fire. But again, I love the interaction and the grindiness and the mid-game and all the plays and counter plays that Wind opens up. So I'm leaning towards this Wind Lorraine deck, or excuse me, Wind Merlin 3 deck that Caben made. But it also wouldn't take much to push me over the edge and play this Tristan deck. I think maybe I'll play this in the main event, and then when I undoubtedly scrub out, or on day 2 when I don't make it, I can play this in side events. So let me know what Wind deck you think fits your playstyle the most. Let me know what element you've enjoyed playing the most. And if you're going to be at Houston at Ascent, let me know in the comments. I would love to meet up with anyone that has ever watched any of my videos. Also, I might have some stuff to give away there, some stickers or other things there. So I hope you enjoyed the deck techs. Again, I kept them really high level. Just wanted to run through the decks I was considering. All the deck links are down in the comments there, or excuse me, down in the notes. Also, please be sure to leave a comment if you want to enter the giveaway. Again, we're giving out a bunch of event packs. Still have a bunch of those to give out. The event the drawing for that will be in 3 weeks in the middle of October, and we're giving away that foil Merlin. So comment, like stuff here, Twitter, Facebook, and Blue Skies. You can get yourself entries there. So hope you enjoyed it. Till next, everyone, cheers and happy gaming.